Norway is known as a model for prison reform, but it's also a model for education within the prison system. From prison officers to inmates, education is accessible, and for some, it's even required. We're going to be looking at how the system works here and how it works at home in Connecticut.
I got here, I started doing drugs in a young age, like 12 years old, and I started selling drugs and doing a lot of bad things, like violence and stuff like that.
But now in his early 20s, he's getting a second chance. He's able to finish up his high school education in prison and learn skills that will help him get a job on the outside.
But it's definitely a factor that can help me move on with my life.
I'm not going to be here forever. So how do you want me to return? Not being able to function? Sitting in a cell for a few years? I'm not going to learn how to correct my behaviors that put me here in the first place.
There are potentials in many countries, in many parts of the world, to make inmates be seen as equal human beings, because it's a matter of human rights and the equality of all people. Whether they come to prison with a sentence, that should not be the ticket to look down on those people. They have struggled in the society, done bad things, they have been convicted by the court, and then they should be treated like human beings in our facilities.
Connecticut has cut its prison population in half over the last decade, but criminal justice advocates want that number lower. On the next cut line, we take you inside prisons in Norway, where Connecticut policymakers learn best practices in hopes of turning corrections from punishment to rehabilitation.
The people who are incarcerated are not seen as human beings. They're not seen as complex, developing individuals who come from histories of trauma or harmful lived experiences. We forget sometimes that we're talking about human beings, and that no one should sort of just be discarded and thrown away, and that's often the case where we come from.
Now, tonight our discussion will be divided into two panels, and then after those two panel discussions are done, we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. And then after that, we're going to actually screen the documentary Transforming Corrections that Walter Bria and their team produced for Connecticut Public. Over the past decade, Connecticut has been able to cut its prison population in nearly half. And criminal justice advocates say that number can go even lower if you think of corrections as rehabilitation. That's why a group of Connecticut policymakers and thought leaders toured prisons in Norway to learn best practices. Our investigative news unit, the Accountability Project, also traveled to Norway to see what the group learned. And members of that group are here tonight to share their observations and perspectives.
What was something that stood out to you?
There were a lot of things that stood out. I mean, just when they pulled up to the prison, and I'm looking around for where's the prison, and I said, this is a prison? So that was just the most amazing thing. And then going inside to see how incarcerated people and the officers interacted with each other. They were very social, respectful. It was just, everything about the trip was amazing, really.